So, sir, you can start to introduce the guest.
Okay. So good morning, friends. It's a pleasure to be back this Sunday again. And our speaker this morning is Mr. Sri Rajendran. I want to thank him for offering his, the offer to speak before this group. And I want to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Rajendran. He is going to speak to us on two themes. One is the role of effort in self-knowledge. And the second is about truth. How can we see the truth in Krishnaji's statements? For those of us who are not aware of Mr. Rajendran, I'll briefly introduce him to you. Mr. C. Rajendran served as an executive in the Government of India, and after having worked at many places across India where he was posted, he lives now at Bangalore and Tiruchirappalli with his wife after retirement. Mr. Rajendran has 3 children who are all settled in their lives. His little journey with Krishnaji's teachings started when he stumbled upon Zen Buddhism after reading a small book in Tamil about Zen stories. This led him to Osho and eventually to Krishnaji's writings. After reading some books on Krishnamurti's teachings, he continues to learn about himself in his daily living. He considers himself to be a beginner of Krishnamurti's teachings. With these words, I welcome Mr. Rajendran once again and request him to please take over and start your discourse. Mr. Rajendran. Please unmute yourself. Unmute.
Oh, thank you, Dubey. I also thank Sushil Kumar Jain Saab for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. So I have been joining this group for I think 1 or 2 years, and I have regularly watching eminent person and stalwarts coming to this forum and discuss on these teachings of Krishnamurti. I am just a beginner. I don't know many of the things. But I just want to share what is my little understanding of Krishnamurti. Before we begin, I also thank all the participants to this meeting. Before I start, I just would like to observe 1 minute of silence for the victims of the Odisha train accident. For a minute, please. Okay, so there are. I ambitiously I was chosen two themes for today's meeting. So I had that time won't permit me. So I prepared a lot of slides also, but I will skip some points. Something I will have to bypass because of the available time. So first, we will discuss about the second thing, the second part of it, the theme, that is test it out. So let me present this screen now 1 minute. So truth. How to see the truth in Krishnaji's statements? How to understand the truth in Krishnaji's many statements? Just listening may be enough. Krishnaji was telling for me, just listening once is enough. But people, laymen like me, such a listening is not known or difficult. Because I never have any patience to listen others. I think that I know more than him and so interrupt him frequently. While listening or reading K also, such interruptions happens in a subtler way, that is thought moves. Then after my journey with small little journey with Krishnamurti, then I understand what is listening. So listening is understanding. First listening, then understanding, not like that. Listening itself is understanding. That listening is with attention. So if you don't pay attention, so we don't listen, we don't understand. Then afterwards, again, we make efforts to understand. That such an effort itself is a barrier to the understanding, I think. So, so this effort itself is blocking our understanding. This is my problem. Maybe that may be the problem for others also. Then what is the solution for this? Listening, not known. Effort to understand is also a problem of struggle. Merely accepting Krishnamurti's statements as true out of reverence or love of K also doesn't help. So, because it is a second-hand knowledge, then what one to do? Then one day I stumbled upon his word, test it out, in one of his talks. I consider this as a tool within course or technique or pointer, whatever it is. Then I searched Krishnamurti, this term, test it out in jkrishnamurti.org, and I found out there are in 147 talks, or he referred this term, test it out. Then I went through one by one, and out of such things, I am presenting a select few. Test it out. See, the test it out and the second theme, that is self-observing, is both are same. Test it out is just observing oneself in action, in our day-to-day life. Observation, that is, it is the test it out is a small component, naturally a small component of self-observation. It is not different, and test it out is not an effort. Self-observation is an effort? No. Alertness. We cannot make efforts to be alert. So just observe oneself. In observing oneself, the effort may be a hindrance. In observing oneself, we come across, we remember some of the statements, and oh, this is true. What Krishnamurti stated is true. So the test it out is a small, one of the components of knowing oneself, self-observation. So let me start the presentation. So some slides I cannot read it in full, because if in case of anything only, because that takes a lot of time, but I will try. Krishnamurti, the real is near. You do not have to seek it. And a man who seeks truth will never find it. Truth is in what is. And that is the beauty of it. But the moment you conceive it, the moment you seek it, you begin to struggle. And a man who struggles cannot understand. That is why we have to be still observant, passively aware. So that is very difficult for us. So that's why we struggle. How can I also see the truth seen by Krishnaji? What Krishnaji is a signpost in a pathless life. Krishnaji, you cannot invite truth. There is no path to truth. There is no intermediary or gateway or anything between you and truth. You have to come. It has. If the field is right, then what? Then that thing comes to you with such glory. That is ecstasy. In that, there is great sacredness. That is holy. Here, I just want to highlight that if the field is right means The earth, the soil, it should be plowed, and it should be wet with rain or water. So then only that thing will comes to you. So whether this takes time or whether it is considered as a maturity, that field is right, I do not know. We have to explore ourselves. So this image is just the Krishnamurti's talk, from which these two small things are extracted. Krishna is told, do it, find it, test it, and you will see it. It is not that the speaker is saying something with which you, oh, it is gone, old minute, with which you disagree or agree or disagree, but you can investigate it for yourself and test it. Test it out. Don't accept a thing from anybody. Got it? Test it, apply it. Not tomorrow, now. Nobody taught me, I assure you, nor have I learned from books, but I have watched, I have struggled, I have tried to find out. It is only when you are absolutely naked. Naked means from stripping all our knowledge, free from all techniques, free from all teachers, that you find out. So Krishnaji himself has find out the truth only by observing himself. He is admitting here himself. So how we can see the truth in Krishnaji's statements? So we have to also observe in ourselves whether what he sees is true or not. So that is self-observation, observing oneself. That is self-knowing. That is in that your part of the component is test it out. So I would just wherever he has mentioned that, out of that in the his talks, I have compiled these things. Unless one has done all this, actually, you can test it out. You can see it in your daily life. If that is not tested out in daily life, it is not worth it. So he has emphasized it clearly, and even in this forum also, many times Dubeyji, Harshad Bhai, and other gentlemen have also suggested this thing. I am not telling anything new. It is already discussed, the test it out. What is testing it out? What? I am just quoting only Krishnamurti only. I am not adding anything of my own. And you can test this. You know what I mean by testing? Everything is Krishnamurti. Whatever you are seeing in the screen is only taken from Krishnamurti's talks. Actually, finding out for yourself by watching yourself and see whether what is being said is true or false. Because it is your life. It is not my life. You have to test it. Krishnaji again, don't accept what we are talking. Test it. That means any longing, any pressure, to observe as you observe a lovely flower. Test it what? See, Krishnamurti often used the words experiment, investigation, and test. They are all a set of words closely related to each other. This is not Krishnamurti's this thing. I searched for the meaning in the what is the relation between experiment, investigation, tested. It says an experiment refers to an investigation in which the validity of a hypothesis is tested in a scientific manner. Unless we testing means, as I repeatedly told you, is observing oneself. Unless we observe in oneself, in ourselves, in our daily life, in a relationship, it will remain as a hypothesis, whether it is said by our own Krishnaji or any other science. Okay. Krishnaji, I quote, I would suggest that instead of considering superficially the ideas that I put forward, you experiment with them to see whether they have any practical value in our life. When we have to test it, you will find then that you can test only in action, not by theorizing about it. Then you will not ask if what I say is true. You will test it in action. You can test this only through action. Only in experience can you perceive whether this idea has any value in itself. Test in action. When? Quote Krishnamurti again. Now we have talked for an hour and 27 minutes. Have you tested it out? Have you freed yourself from this attachment? Or will you say that day after tomorrow, I will listen to you, nothing has happened? That very statement indicates that you have not investigated yourself, gone into yourself. This is by self-knowing only, knowing oneself, self-knowledge. When? You can test this only when you are really in crisis. You cannot test it intellectually when sitting at your ease and imagining a mental conflict. That is what we do, imagining. You can learn its truth when you are face to face with the insistent demand for choice, when your whole being demands action. If in that moment you realize with your whole being, if in that moment you are aware of the futility of choice, then out of that comes the flower of intuition, the flower of discernment. Futility of choice, futility of efforts, choices, choice, efforts, futility. Test. How we have to test it? Krishnaji again. When you observe something without the past, without the prejudice, without anything, the very thing that you are looking at is living, moving, changing, and therefore it is never still. Therefore, disorder is always still in the sense that it is disorder all the time. But if you watch it, the disorder in itself is transforming, becoming something else. But if you look without remembrance, without saying that is disorder, but look like a scientist who says, I want to see what is happening there. I don't want to bring to it what I think should happen there. This is very important. Then the thing you are observing undergoes a tremendous transformation. Will you do this? Test it out actually in daily life. That is art. So tremendous transformation that undergoes tremendous transformation. So unless we test it, it remains as a hypothesis or idea of someone else. How? How to test? So to observe the feeling without naming. Will you do it? Next time you are jealous, can you observe that feeling arising and not name it at all? Then what takes place? Then as I said, the very observation without naming brings about a transformation in the fact. The naming is a problem. Naming, labeling, that's a problem. Test why? Why we have to test it? Then find out what is impeding you. Got into it. Don't say I don't know and then give it up. Find out what is the barrier. Is it laziness? Is it acceptance of things as they are? Not to be disturbed? Sir, go into it, sir. Test it out. Break down, cry, do something to find out. At the end of it, don't say I have listened to you for 20 years or 52 years and I have not changed it. It is not my fault. It is your fault. Don't put the blame on me. Krishnaji. So why? You cannot learn wisdom secondhand. Yeah, that is what we are trying to do. So you say, guide me, help me, liberate me. But I say people do not need guidance. They need awakening. The awakening is maybe coming from the self-knowing, self-observation. Why? Is K teachings only for the few? A questioner. Krishnaji. If it is for the few, it is not worth it. The speaker says it is for everyone. But everyone is not serious, has not got the energy because he is dissipating it in various ways. And so gradually, there are a very few. You follow? So observing it, you say, it is only for the few. Whereas actually, if you apply, go into it seriously with the spirit of investigation and wanting to live a different kind of life, it is for everyone. There is nothing secret about it. But there is a great mystery if you go beyond the limitation of thought. But we don't do any of these things. We don't test it out. We don't apply. We don't eat the food that is put before us. And the few that eat it says, we are the elite. They actually are not the elite. They are only the serious people that have applied, thought about it, gone into it, seeing that it affects their daily life. Why? You can test this out without much elaborate practice, effort, and all that nonsense. Ishaji says the effort and practice are nonsense. So we are getting offended. You can just do it. Now you have to test it. You have to do it, not merely everlastingly listen, and not do. That is like playing a field and never sowing. So this is like a, what you call it, just a blow on our head. It's just hitting us. That is like a plowing a field and never sowing. We are going on reading, listening. Unless we do by observing oneself and self-knowing and test it out, it is like it is like never sowing. Why? You understand all this? Unless you test it, go into it, find it for yourself. If you accept this, then you become a disciple, then you become something utterly useless. We like to be disabled, so we like to be useless also. So don't accept it. Who will tell like this? Don't accept what I say. You see it for yourself. Only a man like Krishnaji only could tell this. Because every guru, master, they want followers. And he is the only person, they don't want to be challenged. And he is the only person who told her, you challenge me, don't accept. Why? I wonder if you understand this. No, please don't agree. You have not done it. You can only agree with when you have tested it, gone into it, find out for yourself and do it. Test it. So merely say I agree with you is not sufficient. He says, no. Unless you have tested it, find it out. Mere agreement is of no use. Test it, which when the observer, the thinker is the thought, and the observer is the observed, there goes a fundamental mutation, and that mutation cannot be described. You have to leave it, which is tested in your daily life. You can't say I have changed and have an ugly life. This air cannot be transmitted to something else. It has to be understood. It has to be exposed to the light of investigation. It is to be true. To understand it, we have to remain with what is. But we make efforts to change it to something. That is futile. Finally, this is a thunderbolt. This is the last in this presentation. Thunderbolt, ready for that. You can test this for yourself. If you don't test it, you have no right to listen to it. It has no meaning. He is telling, if you don't test it, you have no right to listen to me. But we ignore, we continue and we don't observe. We continue the old fashion and old manner in which we are conditioned. So this is the end of this test it out. So I have to rush in fast because I was ambitious and chosen 2 themes in this limited time. So now let me take up the next theme. Effort. Is effort necessary to know oneself? Because of our conditioning, everything we make it a problem and make effort. We believe in hard work, struggle. By hard work only one can come up with life. Okay, in the outer world it may be so, but the inner world, in the psychological world, whether such effort will help, that is the question. Again, see here I am presenting the previous slide again. Here also he talks about effort. The real answer, you do not have to seek it. Don't make it. And a man who seeks truth will never find it. So effort is not going to help. So you have to be still observant, passively aware. So that is effortless. To be still observant, passively aware, if it is possible, with effort, we are ready to do that. But that may not be possible. What do I know of myself now? See, before we start the self-knowing, What do I know? This, we are taking stock of it. So far, I have not done any self-knowing or self-observation in action. But presently, what I know something. What I do, there's an opening balance. What is that opening balance of our knowledge? Before, without self-observation, without knowing what is how the thought process goes on, I have accumulated something. That is the opening balance. I have not started self-observation now. So on the day of my self-observation, what do I know about myself? Opening start. This is it. So it's a big list. It's not exhaustive. We can add so many things. This is a past accumulated things of my biography, memory, judgment, concepts, ideas, expectation, fears, feelings, blames, differences, trials, errors, regrets, wants, habits, so many things. Understanding about others, misunderstanding by others. This is me. This is the opening balance. And when we thought, because this is what I accumulated. This is my accumulation before I begin to understand myself. This is opening balance. While doing self-observation, in the course, I will add something more. So this is the opening balance. What happened to that? Once, if I know myself, what happens to this bundle of my past accumulated things? What will happen? What may happen? We'll come to that later. What is effort? Dictionary meaning. So the very dictionary meaning itself is very clear. Action is different, effort is different. Vigorous attempt, determined attempt, the result of an attempt, a force exerted by a machine or in a process. This suits very much because our thought is mechanical. It's a mental process. So effort is related to all these things. The action, the natural action is something different. So in the whole this discussion today, I have separated action into effort. Okay. So what is effort? Actually, effort is seeking, becoming, changing, improvement, escape. Effort itself is escape. Effort is time, knowledge. Effort is me, self, thought, observer. Because without that, there is no effort. When there is effort, there are indications that everything is there. Will, desire, power. Krishnaji says, will is the essence of desire. And effort is the movement of will. So they are all a family or different names, or they are all the same thing. Motive, achievement, goal. One thought against the other, struggle, conflict. Search for a path to the pathless land. Movement of the thought, the known. Effort inhibits alertness, a barrier to see the truth. What is self-knowledge? See, actually, I want to discuss very briefly about the effort in self. Effort has any role in self-knowledge, but before going that, if you have to understand what is self-knowledge. If you understand what is self-knowledge, what is self-observation, that the question itself, whether the effort has any role in self-observation itself, does not arise. Let us see. I quote Krishnaji, very conception that self-knowledge is difficult to acquire is a hindrance to self-knowledge. Any idea that itself is a hindrance. Do not predetermine what it is and what it is not. Begin, just to begin. What happens in self-knowing? Krishnaji again. In self-knowing, you come upon humility. See, this is surprising. See, we always happy to acquire more and more knowledge, but and that boosts our ego, inflates our ego. Here, Krishnaji says, it deflates the ego and you come upon humility. How it is possible? And such humility is the very ground, the very eyes, the very breath through which you see, tell, communicate. You cannot know yourself if you condemn, judge, evaluate, but watch to see what is without distortion. To observe as you would observe a flower without tearing it to pieces is self-knowing. What happens without self-knowledge? Without self-knowing, all thought leads to perversion and to delusion. So in self-knowing, one begins to lay the foundation of true virtue. See, without self-knowing, the thought which leads to some conclusion and leads to some action. How this thought machinery, how it works, how the thought responds to memory, come to a conclusion and result in action. After action, then you try to improve upon it to become something. So how this whole mechanism works, without knowing it, all our actions lead to perversion and delusion. Is effort necessary for self-knowledge? See here, I just want a small thing. I want to share a small thing about you. That is a self-referential issues. That's a paradox. I recently come across actually within the last few days before. It is relevant to, it is in the field of self-referential issues, is relevant in the field of philosophy, even language and mathematics, etc. I don't know much about it, just I want to share a few things I have come across. Whenever a system like religion, philosophy, science ever tries to grasp itself, it creates self-reference. It creates self-reference problems. Because usually the function of these systems is to grab outside things. So it cannot grasp itself. A funny example is a dog chasing its own tail. How is it possible? How can I grasp my hand by using my hand? I cannot grasp it. Fingers can touch the palm. That is not grasping. How can? This is called, they say, self-referential issues. How can we use consciousness to grab consciousness or to empty consciousness's contents? How can I use my mind to grasp the mind? There is one classic example is there, liar's sentence about the self-referential issue. This statement is not true. Then it is a false or true. So it's a paradox. So the self-referential issue is also a paradox. The observer is the observed, like that. So there is a picture. A picture could be considered self-referential if it contains a copy of itself. There is a desktop on the table. So that picture contains the copy of itself. They call it, because there is the picture itself is a self-referential because it contains itself. So after we know a little about self-referential issue, I want to ask some questions. Is effort necessary for self-knowledge? Can you touch your nose with your tongue? Yes, we can try and do it. Can skin sense itself? The brain, which feels everything, can the brain feel itself when pricked gently with a pen when the patient is lying on an operation theater and the neurosurgeon is doing some surgery? If he touches the brain with a small needle gently, there is no reaction. It does not feel it. When the same surgeon touches the feet or hands with a feather-like thing or cotton piece, there is a twinkling in the brain. The brain never feels itself. It's not possible. That is a self-reference, maybe the self-reference issue. Your hand can grasp other things, but can it grasp itself? Eyes, can the eyes see themselves? I see everything. Nose, can nose smell itself? Can ears hear themselves? Self can grasp all other things, but can it grasp itself? Self can observe all the other things, but can it observe itself? Can the observer act on itself because the observer is observed? Can the observer act on itself? Can the hand, the eyes, ear, tongue, nose, skin, etc. ever realize this limitation? Yes, that is possible. And after making so much of attempt, it gives up finally, no, I cannot grasp. I cannot grasp myself. But it can grasp the fact that it cannot grasp itself. So like that, whether the observer can grasp the fact that it cannot act on itself. Can the observer also ever realize this limitation in a similar way? Then what happens? How to know oneself? Krishnaji again, to know oneself is to study oneself in action, which is relationship. How to know oneself? Krishnaji again, watching every word and its responses, watching every moment of thought and feeling, just watching it. Being conscious of your bodily responses, whether you act from your physical centers or whether you act from an idea. How you respond to the world condition? Krishnaji. How to know oneself? Is to study oneself in action. That is self-observation. One minute. So there is a toolbox is there. I am not able to read. Oh, okay. Why should I know myself? Okay, Krishnaji. But as long as I am ignorant of myself, as long as I am unaware of the total process of myself, I have no basis for thought and for affection, for action. It's a very strong statement. If I am ignorant how this total process of thought works in myself, I have no basis for thought and action. Study yourself, because what we are, the world is. If we are petty, jealous, vain, greedy, that is what we create about us. That is the society in which we live. So why should I know myself? Why should I know myself? Without knowing oneself, it is not possible to think rightly and therefore act rightly. Without self-knowledge, there cannot be complete integrated action. There can only be partial action if there is no self-knowledge. And as partial action invariably leads to conflict and to misery. We live in conflict and live in misery. We love misery and conflict because that keeps us very busy. So without knowing oneself, it's not possible, Krishnaji says, to think rightly and act rightly. What happens when I know myself? Krishnaji. But to be aware of all this human activity, which is ourselves, the desire to attain, the desire to conquer, the desire to have certain virtues, all emphasizing the me as important in the now or in the future, this becoming of the me, to be aware of all that in its totality is the beginning of self-knowledge and the beginning of meditation. Then there comes a marvelous transformation, which is not a verbal expression, which is not verbalization, mere repetition, sensation, but actually, really, vigorously, there takes place a thing which cannot be named, which cannot be termed. And that is not the gift of the few. It is not the gift of the masters. Self-knowledge is possible for everybody if you are willing to experiment, try. Marvelous transformation. We want it. We want it. How to get it? So again, we make efforts and some method or some technique. What happens when I know myself? And then only through self-knowledge and right meditation, there is freedom. In that freedom, there comes reality. But you cannot have reality through mental processes. It must come to you, and it can only come to you when there is freedom from desire. Freedom. What may finally happen to my already accumulated self-knowledge on knowing myself? Just before a few minutes, I showed you the opening balance before I start the self-knowing. the opening balance of accumulated my past. What will happen to that? Once I'm knowing myself, what will happen to the opening balance? Any additions or deletions or anything? What is happening to that? So what is my self-knowledge now and what do I know now? So just let me go back to the previous slide I showed it to you before a few minutes. The opening balance before I begin my self-knowledge. What happened to that? The past accumulated things. This is my opening balance of self-knowledge before I start doing my observing myself. What happened to this? It is gone, vanished, emptiness. Then is it humility, right thinking, right action? I don't know, only how to test it. Role of effort in self-knowledge. I put some humor in that. So Vishwamitra Menaka, we know everybody. I just wonder whether Menaka is just a celestial body or a celestial body or some projection of Vishwamitra's own effort while self-observing. So just this I want to share it with you because my the dialogue is based on this thing. I differentiated between physical world and psychological world and action into two, action and effort like that. It is just I'm not coming to conclusion. I don't know whether I am right or not. It's just a loud thinking. Just please consider it as a loud thinking. So physical world, action. That is natural, just doing it, effortless. Example, walk, sleep, run, drive a car. Here, there is no thought intervention and so no effort. Just a flow of natural actions. Whereas in the psychological world, no action happens here. In the sense that one cannot move from violence to non-violence, for example. Action happens only in physical world after thought response to memory comes to conclusion as effort. It moves from inner to outer. Then if we take effort in the physical world, vigorous or determined attempt, thought enters and add efforts to action. Example, achieve, indulge, overtake other cars. So in the physical world, there is action without effort, and there is action with effort. Both are there. But one can live in the physical world without simple natural actions. That will be just a flow. No conflict, no barrier, nothing. But effort enters and make is for success, achievement, vigorous, determined, okay. That is also okay. Action plus effort, okay. But if you come to psychological world, I say, by love, I shared with the loud thinking, in the psychological world, there is no action is not happening, but action is that seed for the action is sown there by thought, in response to memory, conclusion, and action happening in the physical world, but there is no action in the psychological world in the sense that we cannot move from violence to non-violence in psychological. But there is effort. Psychological world full of effort. Struggle, conflict, movement of thought from what is to what should be. Example, to become change, improvement. I just a question: is the mechanical neurotic thought itself just a stream of efforts, but not a natural action? The mechanical thought, neurotic thought, 24/7, it is going on in our mind. Whether itself is a effort or a natural action, it's a loud thing. That's all. Physical world. Role of effort in physical world. Is effort necessary to physical world? To speak, see, smell, hear, sense, breathe, even effort for breathing, effort is necessary. Smile, laugh. If I make an effort to smile or laugh, it will be artificial. It won't be natural. Get up or sit down. Just no effort is necessary. Only when I am lazy, when the thought intervenes, then I have to make efforts to get up or sit down, because effort is always one thought against the other. Walk or move, just to walk, drive a car, there's no effort. It is only training, skill, experience. That is driving a car. It goes very smoothly. It is just a flow. When the thought intervenes while driving the car, there is a conflict. I want to overtake other car. There is a distraction. There is a conflict. Then there is a struggle. Then whenever thought moves in, there is an effort. Run a machinery to make a living. Skill. That is sufficient. Training. Any livelihood. Is it effort necessary to live? Because in the outer world, always we make effort to live. So in the psychological world also, we replicate the same thing. So in the outer world also, to live, is there any effort is necessary? Any effort necessary to die? If we make an attempt to die, that's a suicide. Or if whether because that effort is futile, I can die, only I can die. Effort means effort to die is suicide. I want to make an effort not to die. That is possible. So in all this, in the physical world, for all this, is there any effort is necessary at all? So in the psychological world, effort necessary, experience. If we try to make an effort to experience, learn, listen, understanding. Listening is understanding. Listening itself is understanding. If we listen with attention, understanding comes naturally. We don't know the art of listening, so we don't understand while listening itself. Then afterwards, we make an effort to understand. Whether that effort will help to understand. For example, what Krishna ji is telling. Effort necessary to right thinking. Effort to, can I make effort to observe oneself? Make an effort to be quiet, be sensitive, to be aware, to be alert, be attentive, be intelligent, compassionate, passionate. Meditate, effort to meditate. So that is not meditation. Enlightenment. Do nothing also, we make an effort, or be nothing also. And the last, is there effort necessary to be effortless? So we are now, we do not know if effort is not necessary for all these six. What one should do? Nothing. For ease of discussion here, our daily activities are divided into physical and psychological, but in reality, they are interconnected and just one. Outer to inner, inner to outer, a perennial, seamlessly integrated movement of our life. Be absolutely alert and make no effort, Krishna ji. When I hear this Krishna ji statement, immediately my question is how to become absolutely alert. I want some method or technique so that I can make effort to be alert. To be alert, do I need to make any effort? You tell me, I will do it. By making efforts, can I attain this state of absolute alertness? Absolute alert about what? In self-knowing, absolute alert about the movement of thoughts. My thought is responsible for this problem of not being alert, aware, and attentive. Then how can the same thought be its own problem solver? How can the thought act on itself? Or in the material world, for example, the person of power, like our president or ministers, who created problem for others, can himself solve it. But in the psychological domain, will it work like that even for that person of power? Physical effort. Do we need efforts in our daily routine life? Getting up early in the morning. Do we need to make an effort to wake up early in the morning for my regular walks in the nearby park? It is 5 a.m. alarm beeps. I just get up and get ready, go out and walk. Only when the lazy thought comes in and press snooze button, I need to make an effort to get up. Yes, just to get up. So for just doing it, no effort is necessary at all. Then No effort is necessary at all before my thought creeps in. So what about other daily activities? Eating food. When I'm hungry, I just eat it. No effort. Is effort necessary to bring food to the table? To earn money to buy groceries, etc., and to cook for avoiding junk food? Is effort necessary, or just seeing dangers of it is enough? Drinking water. When I am thirsty, I just drink water. Is effort necessary for drinking water? Drinking 3.7 liters of a day to avoid dehydration, effort is necessary, or seeing dangers of dehydration is just enough? Driving a car, just to drive skill, muscle memory. While driving, thought intervenes and distracts. Then effort to concentrate. Office work, just to do it with skill and intellect. Sleep. When I am sleepy, I just go to bed and sleep. But in the middle of the night, wake up, go to the restroom, return to the bed and try to sleep. Try. The try is effort. Whether the effort helps. I am reminded of an important event next day. Worry about non-sleep and make this effort to sleep well. Such a desire and effort themselves will drive my sleep away and keep me awake for hours. So effort is not only necessary for the sleep, but also an impediment to it. Once I realize that, I drop off efforts and fall asleep. How about breathing, pumping blood, digesting the food? Effort? Sick. When I am sick, yes, when only sick, the efforts are necessary for the infected to do these autonomous functions, duly supported with medical text. Healthy? No effort is necessary. Why do we always make effort? The thought creates opposites, duality, ideal, what should be, and we struggle to become that ideal from what is the fact. To become something or someone, we make effort and we think that effort is necessary. To remain with what is also, do we have to put effort, same efforts? Effort is a process of becoming. Effort is the thought, the observer, the knowledge, the time, the desire. When one sees clearly that the observer is the observed, does he make an effort to be non-violent, intelligent, patient, peaceful, active, quiet, unselfish, etc.? The duality, or to become? Realizing the futility of the efforts dissolves all actions of this duality. Effort is motive. Krishnaji has given classic examples of the sun shining its own light over the earth, flowers blooming and birds singing without any motive or efforts. So we try to find motive in all efforts, not only our efforts, someone's efforts. Why this man should do like this? Because there is a motive. It is if somebody gave donation to some organization, immediately question, oh, why this fellow is donating this much of, oh, he's having some income tax problem. So unless we find the motive, we will be restless. To see the truth, the pathless land, to efforts help in any way. Those efforts may be the blockings, one's view of the land, or they create their own parts to the land or their own land itself. Effort becomes a necessary only when the thought moves into the action, one thought against the other, conflict, struggle to begin. No thought, no effort, and then the life will be just a flow. So I have to rush in, I will finish it within another 2 minutes. By self-observation, it may be clear that one's own thought is the effort. Effort is motive, time, the me, the self, the thought. Effort is to become, will, desire. Effort inhibits alertness, a barrier to see the truth. Effort is a search of a path to the pathless land. Effort is not necessary in all activities of daily living. And only when the thought enters, it brings effort and the struggle to begins. Be still, do nothing, just be alert, Krishnaji. Why doing this is so difficult for us? Because due to our efforts, at the end of all this, what happens to one now? Alertness or effort to understand? So I am asking such these questions. Is the thought the mechanical neurotic one itself is a mere natural action or a stream of efforts? Was realization of a man or knowing himself with humility of the futility of all efforts called by the religious as surrender to the Almighty, the God? Is this realization of time? Psychological efforts we know, but are there any psychological actions? Is there an action with no effort? Is that called a flow? By nature, is there such a thing as physical effort? But physical activity only. Does the thought enter into a natural activity and convert that simple act into an effort, a becoming, a struggle, and a conflict? Are all efforts purely psychological and a movement of the thought? So here, be absolutely alert and make no effort. This is very important thing. This effort portion of my dialogue. This is very important. See, this is a Bombay City magazine. Many of here, they might have read it. They might have come across it. They know Mr. Asit Chanmal personally. So this issue, Mr. Asit Chanmal, he has written an account of J. Krishnamurthy's last days. So there, in the page, I just want to read a small extract. On the days that follow, he meets his friends and associates from the Krishnamurthy Foundation India, sometimes alone, sometimes in a group. He speaks to us many things of schools and study centers and silence. Towards the end of the last gathering, he says, be absolutely alert and make no effort. I ask if these are his last words to us, and he smiles. I'm leaving to your thought. I'm leaving to your decision. Watch like a hawk. Self-observation. Krishnaji, to see where it is hiding, to understand this, it requires great attention, watching. You don't do all this. Probably you are too lazy or too old to say, for God's sake, all this is not worth it. Let me alone. But if one really wants to go into this very deeply, one has to watch like a hawk, every moment of thought, every moment of reaction, so the brain can be free from its condition. Thank you. Just to do it. Thank you for the time. Thanks.
Thank you. You have to, okay. Thank you, Mr. Rajendran. I think it was a very nice presentation. You brought it Krishnaji's sayings. One can't have anything to say more on those things. I have a few things which I felt I felt uneasy reading it. One, when you said that the opening balance of our self-knowledge, and by being aware, it all vanishes. I don't know how many people can experience that. Krishna has. So in a way, you are right when you say that it vanishes and goes. But I have my own experience of life, and I feel when I'm aware of myself, a particular negative emotion or a disorder, even though it doesn't vanish, but it doesn't create problems for me. So I don't think the balance becomes zero, because that is perhaps totally theoretical, as far as I'm concerned. I don't challenge what you say, but this is my own experience. Another thing you said about the paradox of self-effort. Sir, the religious mind, Krishna said, is a mind which seeks truth. It's the search for truth which has the input of religious mind. And a scientific mind is one which also seeks truth, but it goes from fact to fact. So a religious mind can be a scientific mind, but a scientific mind need not necessarily be a religious mind. Similarly, it's possible for a thought to watch the thought. We can know ourselves without any doubt that this is happening in my mind right now. I can see that. Similarly, I want to say a little bit about effort before I hear Dinesh ji and Harshad Parekh bhai and Dr. Verma. How do you just start and be alert? It may be totally theoretical that you don't have to do any effort, but I have to prepare myself. So you may not call it effort, but there has to be some preparation. You know, basic things like I must be truthful, I must be honest, I must have clean thoughts. Are that not preparation? If I don't have all that, I'm all the time ambitious and want to achieve something in life, I can't be alert. The observer becoming observed becomes totally false for me. So I think lots of preparation is needed before I can really understand what Krishnaji is talking about. Because the level at which Krishnaji talks about his level of consciousness, I don't have. So I have to not only see the word, but read in between the lines before I can, say with commitment that this is what happens. So this is what I wanted to say.
Yes, sir.
This is my pure observation. That's
Yes,
all.
sir. Respect, sir. Just here, I just want to mention the right earth. The earth should be right. So maybe that may be the preparation, sir. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Dinesh ji.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yeah.
First of all, I am really impressed by Rajendran sir's presentation. He has covered most of the points and JK statements. And I would like to only give my views on those things. And I also agree with Dubey sir that the preparation is required and that preparation may be having effort implied in it. So anyway, first of all, I would like to take this critical subject of effort in self-knowledge. My views are, what is the first difference between self-knowledge and self-knowing? Is self-knowing is the data of your memory about your name, family details, relatives, your address, etc., your academic career, etc. Whereas self-knowing is your reactions or responses in the moment. This we have time and again we have talked this of relationship with animate and inanimate beings, right? Now, if we talk of transactions with inanimate beings or animate beings, then role of efforts will be there as long as self is not diluted. As long as self is not diluted. Dubey sir has also pointed out the same thing. In other words, we are not Krishnamurti. Unless we go to that, as long as our self is there, it is not diluted or it is not becomes irrelevant, we will be facing this question of effort all the time. So, what is the meaning of effort? It is a vigorous or determined attempt, as Rajendran said. So, and technically a force exerted by a machine or in a process. So, if one has to remain aware from moment to moment, choicelessly, or with say passive awareness, he has to do a determined attempt, is it not? Krishnamurti himself has said that no one can remain moment to moment aware all the time. He has to understand that when he is not aware. So, as long as self is there, of course, after the self is not there, then probably this is what we can imagine only. If self is not there, or it is immaterial, or it is irrelevant, then in that case, whether it is effort or not, the question doesn't arise. Because who is there to do the effort, or who is there to do not no effort? But as long as self is there, the question of this effort will always be there. And it will be there. That is what my thinking is, or my views are. Yes,
Just
after
I want
gaining
to.
wisdom, just let me finish, sir. Then you can.
Okay, carry on.
After gaining wisdom or awakening of intelligence, things may change, right? Now we come to the second point: truth. How can we see the truth in JK statements? Here, first of all, what we are discussing, absolute truth or relative truth. JK himself said that nobody knows absolute truth. If somebody says he knows, then he doesn't know. JK also said truth is pathless land, means nobody can show you the path. He can only give you the pointers. So absolute truth is concerned, as you rightly said, Rajendran sir, that truth has to come to you. And you cannot go to that truth. Apart from absolute truth, every other truth is relative or fragmented truth. It is a partial truth.
Your sound is, your audio has problem, Dinesh.
Now, is it problem now? Is it now problem?
Okay. No, it's okay now.
Okay. Apart from absolute truth, every other truth is relative or fragmented truth. It is a partial truth. Now, when we say fragmented or relative truth, definitely observer and his center comes into picture. Similarly, the central demand of the situation event, as well as the center of objects, also come into picture. Any transaction between the two will always be time bound and transient. This, in other words, you have also said, confirm this thing. And all the truths will be subjective or individual. This applies to JK statements also. That's why he said that you check yourself. And he said, you cannot find the truth. You can only know which is false or untruth. Even our P. Krishna also said the same thing some days back. You cannot know the truth. You can only know what is false or untruth in the worldly matters, particularly, or the divided truth or the fragmented truth. Now, you said that these are my views. Now you said that test it out. When you say test it out, there is no effort in testing. This is my question. One is to, this is debatable. Another thing, you say listening and with attention. Any listening with attention will always be there with effort. Yes, JK said that, can you listen to me like you listen to music without, with a free mind and with this thing? How do you listen to music? Does intellect come in between? Sometimes thought may interfere, but most of the time you will be just enjoying the music. So in a similar way, can you listen to me? So my submission is, even if you listen with attention, there will be effort in it, and this one has to consider. Thank you.
So this is my answer to our friend Dinesh. Whether test it out is an effort. See, test it out is just observe oneself, know your own self. For that is
Start.
No, please, Dinesh. So if you make an effort to observe oneself, then we are caught in the paradox. So test it out is not an effort, because that is not, we are not going to the laboratory and microscope and all these things. We are just a self-observation, observing oneself. Is it an effort? The whole subject of today's dialogue is what is the role of effort in self-knowing or self-knowledge? So test it out is one of the components, as I explained. Just observe while observing yourself. While you are self-observing, you may remember the Krishnaji is one of the statements that truth is a pathless land or something. You are the world and where is you, or anything. There are thousands of statements. And you will, in action, you will find out, while observing, self-observing yourself, you will find out, what Krishnaji told is truly correct. So that is not effort. We convert everything into effort. And one more thing, that is possible only for Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti says it is self-knowing is not only for the masters, it is for everyone. We put Krishnamurti, are we putting Krishnamurti on the pedestal? It is only for him, and we escape from that. We escape from knowing the truth. Are we doing like that? Efforts itself strengthen the self. We cannot make effort to free from the self. When you make effort, that's a struggle. That strengthens the self itself, the thought itself. So one has to see for oneself by self-observing, and then they may come to know. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr.
Can I say something on this?
No, wait, Dinesh, let others say something. Let's not make it a one-to-one question answer. Yes, Harshad.
Yes. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajendran ji. I liked very much when you started with 1 minute of silence, because in silence comes a kind of clarity, observation. Without silence, it is not possible to see clearly. And so I like that very much. But then after that, you presented too many things, too much knowledge of Krishnamurti, what Krishnamurti says. I think that is not so much necessary to give what Krishnamurti has said. Krishnamurti has so one sentence of Krishnamurti can tell you many, many things. And so not so many sentences of Krishnamurti required. Like he said once, to go far, you have to start with what is near, and the near is your own self. So when we become interested in looking at our own self with curiosity, energy, passion, honesty, we begin to learn about our own self in a direct way. So it seems to me that it is not necessary to read too much of Krishnamurti. Maybe we can read one page and then put the book aside and even forget what Krishnamurti has said and look at our own mind, how these thoughts are coming and going. In that, there is a direct learning. And then we can say, yes, after we have really looked clearly at our own mind, then we can say, yes, what Krishnamurti says is quite obvious. I remember one professor had come to Rishi Valley in 1980s, and he met Krishnaji, and after that we went for a walk, and the professor told Krishnaji that I have studied your teachings for 30 years, but I have not moved. That means I have not changed. And Krishnamurti said, you have not moved because you have not stopped. So that kind of stopping and looking at ourselves as we are, even whatever anger is coming or fear coming, to look at it directly, it requires freedom at the beginning. And that is lacking. And we are trying to understand Krishnamurti and not to our own self. And that makes life very a lot of conflict, because we try to say what Krishnamurti means by this. That is the wrong question, I feel. It means we are trying to understand Krishnamurti and not our own self. But when we begin to see clearly our own self, it begins to change our life. It begins to change our relationship with the nature, with the people around. And that is the test of understanding, is in relationship. And our mind begins to be silent. We begin to observe nature in a different way than before. So I have many other things to say, but we don't have time. And Pradeep ji is waiting. So maybe we can listen to Pradeep ji.
Just
Yes.
one second, one sentence I want to say, sir. Observing, understanding Krishnamurti is understanding ourselves, sir.
Yeah.
Understanding Krishnaji is understanding ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, Dr. Verma.
Yes, sir. I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Rajendran ji. Harshad Bhai has taken up very important point of the verbosity. We get trapped in words. I really appreciate your efforts in collecting over the years and accumulating and serving in some order for you to make us understand, the listeners. After listening for 1 hour, what is, me included, the mental processes activized in me, then whether so many words are required to understand a simple thing about the self and knowledge, time, efforts, because the effort you have put in, I don't differentiate into physical or psychological efforts, because both are there. I can see both are there. That that brought to this text which you have brought today. Whether outer world that requires efforts doesn't have any relationship with the inner world, that is my psychology, it is there to me. And effort is self only, in a way. I will just read out a very simple, how a person like a seer like J.K. can put things so simply in this thing. K says there is no path to truth. Do you accept that? Is the faculty to see this outside myself? My consciousness and means of perception are entirely within me. How can I go without any means or tools towards the unknown goal? I'll just read out the very important thing, very important, very interesting. What is truth? Is there such a thing as truth? I am reading JK, the last talks at Sanin. What is there such a thing as truth? Is there such a thing in absolute, irrevocable truth, not dependent on time, environment, tradition, knowledge, what the Buddha said or what somebody said? The word is not the truth. The symbol is not the truth. The person is not the truth. Therefore, there is no personal worship. K is not important at all. So we are seeking what is truth, if there is any, and whether there is something that is beyond time, the ending of all time. And they have said that meditation is necessary to come upon this. And meditation is, simply said, when you are out of yourself, when self is no more there, and the whole, you are in the whole without knowing it even. So that these are the things. He tells you simply the role of self and what it does in our daily life. Everything is clear of self-observing and observation and self-knowledge. Knowledge is when it is consolidated in the form of past or words already there in me. So I'll not take one more time because Durga ji is waiting for that. Thank you very much, Rajendran ji. Such a scintillating topic, very energizing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Verma. Yes, Durga ji, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Rajendran, sir. Yeah, it's indeed a very energizing, scintillating, and all encompassing topics of Krishnaji's presentation. Today you brought before us. I think, yeah, it's too ambitious. I think we would have rather preferred you can come maybe after 6 months or maybe sometime maybe you should have made it 2 presentations. Just a suggestion, sir. And it started also beautifully about the listening. And it's simply one small story came to my mind. It's from our old mythology. When they say like Ashtavakra, when the discourse of Gita began, that the disciple who's supposed to be Janaka, there were no 2 people there. It's only the listening part. So if that can be the intensity and the clarity of the listening is happening, maybe Krishnaji is very easy to absorb. But then Krishnaji says, it is not only me, you have to listen. You have to listen from everybody. Listen from everything in nature. From the falling of a leaf, from the smile of the child, wrinkles of an old person. Listen from everywhere. Listen from everything. Another statement he gives a compelling thing about listening. And I think my previous predecessors, they have brought out very beautiful points. Like Dubey sir has mentioned about religious mind. Because otherwise, the thought has the immense potential, extraordinary potential to capture us. Unless and until we understand the mechanizations of the thought, It's all, Krishnaji's teaching has to be brought to that level. Understanding the core structure and the mechanizations of thought and seeing them from moment to moment. So those are the levels and areas of the Krishnaji's teaching that's also part of teaching. And like, like Mr. Dinesh also has brought a very good quotation of, awakening of intelligence. So it's not only about transformation he speaks, awakening of intelligence, seeing the truth as truth, false in the truth and truth in the false. And like Mr. Harshad Parekh, sir, he also said, listen to everything. And to be is not your life alone. To be is to be related. And how the conflict arises in our day-to-day, relationships. All the conflict is mostly due to ego. How can the ego just vanish away like that? To understand that, to be able to make us sit and think and why the problem is happening, why the conflict is happening, where is it, where am I going wrong? All these aspects, the churning, the brainstorming. I think that's what the Krishnaji, teaching is pointing us to go in that direction. Otherwise, it's very easy to, I think it's all about learning lessons, sir. Learning lessons and seeing where one is going. Is really one there? And he says about living and dying. That was the most fundamental aspect of the teaching, most intense part of it. And without knowing it, without understanding, without all these things, when they start happening, one never knows where one is going. One maybe because it's integrated process, and maybe there comes more listening or maybe love. We don't know, but my understanding of Krishna is it's applying your mind to all these areas and seeing that we are not getting carried away by thought. Have I understood the very thought, or have I got carried away? Am I in the stream of the thought only? But that's also a very fundamental question we need to ask. That's all, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Durgaji. We'll listen to Prasad Garu now. Yes, sir.
Sir, firstly, Rajendran Sahab has given a very exhaustive picture of case teaching. I mean, he has taken a lot of pains. He has given a garland of his case quotations, and that is quite impressive. But as you have objected, or rather given a slightly different note, I also agree with you that is the opening balance. It doesn't disappear. The opening balance has remained with me after 30 years. And there is no hope that it will disappear at all. And I don't think it should.
Yes.
There is no point in it disappearing. Then it becomes, I think I will become a vegetable if it disappears. I have no desire to become a vegetable. So, but one thing, it loses its hold on you. You see its context. You see, you can understand how it has arisen in you. And it doesn't affect you in your daily life, it is just like a memory, that's all. Memory of your childhood. And even Krishnaji has for me, I think he also remembered lots of things of his early childhood and all that. The boy, vacant mind, that itself is a memory. That he had a vacant mind itself is a memory. And his visits to his father after his return from England and all those things he remembered. And so, that is that. The role of effort in self-knowledge, I mean, I think a lot of speakers have mentioned it. There is no effort. Rajendran Sahab has also mentioned it. There is no effort in self-knowledge. It is not like my knowledge of engineering or law or anything like that. It is observing yourself from moment to moment, and every moment you are changing. You are not what you were yesterday. Today you have become different. And tomorrow you will become still more different. So there is nothing like yourself, as a constant. It is not a constant. You are moving and you perceive yourself in movement. That is a thought in movement. That is what you will perceive. And there is no effort at all in that. If there is an effort, it becomes practice. And it is in that respect that Krishnaji differs from tradition. In tradition, there is a practice. In Krishnaji, there is no practice. That is my understanding. And that is where we have to be careful when we are trying to make an effort. It is not, you are bringing your background, instead of perceiving your background, you are moving from your background, or you are bringing your background into your perception. Then when you bring your background, it may be very difficult not to bring your background, but that is what we have to understand. That is, we are not to bring our background into operation. Our perception becomes perverted when you are having that background, when you perceive. So we have to be careful on that. That is where choiceless observation comes into picture. Otherwise, it is an observation with choice. So there is no effort at all. Then how can we see the truth of the teaching? There is no particular method to see the truth of the teaching. You either you see it or you don't see it. There is no method in that. When Krishnaji says, tradition has, something like God is an invention. You have invented God. You are worshipping yourself. You invent God and then you worship that God. In other words, you are worshipping yourself. When he says that, there is no way of seeing the truth. Either you see it or you don't see it. If you see it, you are with him. If you don't see it, you are not with him. I don't think there is any particular method to see the truth of the teaching. Or when he says, when the self is there, the other is not there. That also, there is no particular way of seeing the truth of that a statement like that. So many statements are there like that. I think the statement comes to you with an impact. When you see it, it comes to you with an impact. When you don't see it, you don't see it. I was reading something. He says, you are not an individual. I mean, the uniqueness of man doesn't lie in the superficial. It lies in the freedom from the uniqueness, from the superficial. Superficial being your background. And so you are not an individual. A statement like that is quite complicated. It has a depth. Either we see it or we don't see it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasad. Thanks a lot.
Just I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
So many are telling I made a lot of efforts to prepare this presentation. Sharing is not pleasure. May be some efforts. For pleasure, I would have put some efforts. But sharing what I see with others is a joy. So joy does not need any efforts. Actually, I enjoyed it. While preparing the presentation itself, I saw new things which I did not see previously. So it was a flow, sir. There was absolutely no effort. I was never tired. Actually, I felt very fresh because I got some few new insights. That's all. No efforts. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have come to the end of the session now. I want to thank Mr. Rajendran for bringing out a very interesting discourse and which evoked lots of responses. Next Sunday, we'll have Mr. Howard Ward. He looks after the library and bookstore in Ohio, Kismurti Foundation, America. Dr. Harshad Parekh had suggested his name. And he is going to talk to us on order and silent mind. So next Sunday, we'll meet at 9:30 a.m. Please make a change of the time. It will be 9:30 a.m. to accommodate his timing in California. So Mr. Howard Ward will be speaking to us. And a word to Prasad Garu, sir. You can speak on the common ground of all humanity. The common ground of all humanity. This is a statement made by Krishnaji. So you can find it somewhere if you search in the Google. With these words, I thank you all. And please do join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. If you're free. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.